Hey guys, and welcome back to another EVE Online video. Tonight we've just been going through, we'll be doing the Capsuleer Day Clash event site, in HiSec, the EDENCOM site, site, up in HiSec. Just take you through the fit real quick. I'm in a Gnosis. You'll notice if you're an Omega account, in maybe a day or two, you'll be getting a free Gnosis, so you might be able to try this out yourself. So I thought I'd give it a go before that happened. Credit for the fit though goes to, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's like Slag on YouTube. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description. You guys should check him out. Does some good videos. So this is my Gnosis. If you're not aware, the site only allows battle cruisers in, which is why I'm in the Gnosis. We're a heavy assault missile ham build. My skills aren't very good, so you'll see this is actually quite a low skill fit, fairly cheap, 114 for the whole thing, but you'll see it's fairly low skilled. So I've got the meta for heavy assault missile launchers, and then I'm just using Nova heavy assault missiles all across the top there. To help with damage application, because we're doing missiles, we've got a guidance computer 2 with the precision script. We've got a target painter 2 and a stasis webifier. Again, I'm not skilled into level 2, so this is just the meta version of a webifier. And in the bottom we've got ballistic control system 2s, 2 of them, to help with the damage. In the rigs I've just got tank, so auxiliary nanopumps, 2 level 1s and 1 level 2, tier 2. And the final high slot salvager, in case you want to pick up any of the Triglavian salvage. We've got a large cat battery 2 and a cat recharger 2 in the mids. And there's also a warp disruptor. I have a Tech 2 one in. This is because of the final wave, which is where you might get the good loot. There's a couple of cruisers. Once you killed one of the cruisers, the rest of the wave will warp off. So you want to get a point on the other cruiser so that you can get the loot out of them. And the remaining low slots, we've got the Armor Rep 2, Damage Control 2, and Energized Adaptive Nanomembrane 2. And then there's also, I'm using a reactive armor hardener. I really like this. You'll see here, it looks like 15, 15, 15, 15. It looks like it's not as good as the energized adaptive. But what this does is, depending on your incoming damage, it automatically adapts to move the defenses to the correct damage type. So you'll actually see when we run this in this site, it's mostly thermal and explosive. So we could just fit those specific hardeners, but obviously this only takes up 1 slot, and you see that the total is 60%, so it will just move the resistances to cover the primary incoming damage. So I think I'll highlight it later in the video. You'll see later on that this has 30% explosive and 30% thermal resistances and 0 in the EM and the kinetic, so that's a really useful bit of kit. And then I've just got my drones as well, hammerheads and hobgoblins, but I only actually use the hammerheads in the site. You want quite a few of them though. You'll see I've got a few in my cargo hold. Depending on the site, I've run a few of these now, and it's all quite variable. I had one site where my drones took lots of aggro all the time. That obviously I lost a few drones, but that reduced a bit of the incoming DPS on me. I've had other sites, like this one you'll see here, my drones don't pick up any aggro at all, but that means the DPS remains quite high. And I will put a quick disclaimer in this, like I say, it's fairly low skilled, so my DPS isn't huge. Not bad, but isn't huge. Most of that's actually coming from the drones. And the tank is as good as it can be, really, with the skills. I think I could skill slightly more into it, but you know. So this is a very tight fit. The ship, we get very close to losing it. I haven't lost one of these yet. I lost a Drake in the first site I tried, but I haven't lost my Gnosis yet. I run 3 or 4 sites now, and yeah, it gets close. You'll see in this video it gets close, but if you skill up at all, you see I'm training a hammer level 4. So if you've got Tech 2 heavy assault missile launchers, you should be fine. The DPS output will be higher. But anyway, without further ado, guys, we'll jump into the site. We'll see you there. So we're just warping into the site, and for these sites you'll see as we land you drop onto an acceleration gate. So you're safe to just warp in and scout around if you need to. You drop in here and then you take the acceleration gate into the site. Upon landing in the site, you just end up in the middle of a field of debris. And all the rats spawn right on top of you, so we'll just drop the MTU to pick up the loot, and then we'll orbit it. I'll orbit it at 5k, just reduce that incoming damage a tiny bit, but no prop mod or anything, it's not really important. Then you get the first wave, I like to take out the starving rats first. They do cap neutralization, and I learned that capacitor is pretty important towards the later end of this site, so I like to look after my capacitor where I can. The rats are all named such that you know what they do. So starving is capacitor, anchoring, they warp scramble you, tangling, they web you, and liminal are the high damage ones. So you can target things accordingly depending on what you want to protect most at your end. So if you're getting low, you might want to take out the anchoring ones nice and quick, and so you can warp out. Otherwise, you want to do DPS, volley the DPF off the field, go for the liminal, and so on. Renewing, I think they repair the other ships. So yeah, you can see I have got my hammerheads out. Like I said earlier on, the rats target your drones in some of the sites. I had one where they just picked up aggro constantly, so when you warp in, you want to wait till you pick up the aggro from the rats before getting your drones out. Excellent looking ships, these Traglavians. Thought we'd check this one out real quick. That's the cruiser class, which is the Rodiva. Yeah, and then between waves you can pull your rats back in, pull your drones back in, let the rats spawn and aggro you again. The waves spawn fairly unconventionally, I've found, in these sites. They don't come, you can see one's just warped in randomly here before I finish clearing the previous wave, and then the rest of this rat's wave will appear in a minute or so. Like, they don't seem to just come as a complete wave. So the aggro and everything is fairly consistent. You're not really able to spend too much time like just tanking up one ship so that you can recover your armor, your capacitor and stuff. They keep you on your toes. Blinding, they do not sensor dampening, they do guidance disruption and tracking disruption, so they reduce your ability to hit people. And there is one other rat that does sensor dampening that we'll probably see in a little bit. So at the moment, you can see with the fit, you can just tick through these waves, and we'll just push through here at the moment. See, the way to really maximise your damage output, you want to have your target painter running. I've got my script running the whole time, and wherever possible I want to be webbing my targets, slow them down so you can hit with your missiles better. And they help your drones out too. might see me do it a little bit later on, but when I'm left with just one renewing cruiser, their DPS isn't that high, so in order to conserve some capacitor I turn off my armor rep just for a little bit. I don't do it for this one, but the next time this happens I will switch my armor rep off. Stay outside of your web range. They stay at about the 10 to 12 kilometer mark, which is the end of the world. They're not too difficult to get rid of. Brief bit of respite here, so I turn things off, bit of cap recovery, and then in comes the next wave. A couple of cruisers, starving, so I want to target that first. Really do not. You'll see the starving ones, the starving cruisers in a second. They do huge cap, 135 gigajoules, go on every cycle. I've only got 5,000 capacitor on this, and it's not quite cap stable ordinarily. It takes about 18 minutes for the cap to drain fully, but you chuck these Newton cruisers in, and that goes down very quickly. So get them off the field as soon as possible. See why we've got one here, we've got our sensor dampened. So that, I believe, reduces your targeting range. Not really a problem for this fit, but either they stay within 10 kilometers of you the whole time, and you're not trying to snipe them in this fit. You're quite happy to stay close, so the sensor dampening is not a problem. So I often tend to leave the blinding ones till last. You can see here, I'm just highlighting the reactive armor hardener. By this point we'd gone to 30% explosive and 30% thermal. And you can see that again, and zeros in EM and kinetic. So all of these rats aren't too much of a problem throughout the whole thing until you get to the very last wave. The DPS does pick up a little bit at certain waves, and when I run the site, other times it varies again, and the DPS varies up. You get a lot more liminals last time around the site, so the DPS was a bit higher, but it copes absolutely fine until you get to the very last wave, which normally is 2 cruisers. They're called like Void Max or something. We'll see them in a minute, but they're like Void Mac cruisers, 2 of them, and a frigate, and their DPS output is extremely high, and then it gets a very, very twitchy. We'll show you that in a second. See, even now when we've got 6 rats on the field, they're all frigates, 1 destroyer, the DPS isn't a problem. Just prefer my DPS output to be slightly higher so that I can get through the sites a little bit quicker. This whole thing took me about 19 minutes to run, and the loot isn't brilliant so far. I've only run 3 or 4 successfully, and it's skins and boosters for the most part. You do get the standard Triglavian salvage and databases as well, but the unique loot is just skins and boosters. I haven't seen anything else. I'm hoping something juicy might turn up if I do enough of these, but for the time being, it's questionable whether this is worthwhile. Clearing down this large frigate wave. As you can see, I've left my drones out the entire time and they've not picked up aggro once. Very nice to not be losing drones. But this isn't a good example. I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you notice it working out for you. With the second site I ran, I lost 3 hammerheads and 3 hobgoblins because they were just constantly aggroing my drones. As soon as I got them out, one died. I was like, ah. I had to just pull him in, pull him out, pull him in, pull him out. It's pretty stressful stuff. So once again, starving cruiser, take it down as quickly as you can. You'll see my capacitor start to get hit, and you need as much capacitor as possible for the last wave, because they newt, and they newt heavily. They anchor you. They've got a strong tank themselves because they repair really quickly. So if you have to stop laying down your DPS at any moment, they'll repair through it really fast. So you need as much as you can for that final wave. You may have noticed me reload my missiles manually a couple of times. That's because that's because I'm not sure when the final wave is about to spawn. So I'm trying to make sure I've got as much ammo as possible in my launchers before that wave spawns. And you see, because I'm trying to protect my capacitor so much, there's a neuting destroyer has landed on the field, so I'm happy to tank the DPS from the tangling cruiser while I take out the capacitor neuter. I've prioritised that over anything else. And I've turned my armor rep off, so just turned it back on, but I turned it off for a second because I was comfortable with the DPS, protecting the capacitor as much as possible. The hammerheads have some pretty tasty DPS, and they don't have any problems hitting the frigates for Triglavians, which is nice. Sometimes, if you're taking on regular rats, you might consider swapping out for the hobgoblins, but the hammerheads do this all absolutely fine. Just turning the armor rep off again. Comfortable with the incoming DPS, even though there's a liminal on the field. I'm happy to tank it up. So this time, the site messed with me a little bit. So I've got one destroyer warped in just before the final wave. So you can see the three named Voivod. They're your final wave, right? And so you want to take out the Vedmak as quickly as possible. So I dropped all of my damage off with the ghosting and just desperately trying to take out the cruiser as fast as I can. As I mentioned earlier on, I put a warp scram on the Rodiva because once you kill one of the cruisers, the other one warps out. But look at the DPS, my tank is just being shredded. We've got a nuke going on, so you'll see my capacitor drop down really fast. I had to start overheating, and overheating early, try and get as much damage and rep out as possible. But I don't have very good overheating skills either. But there you go, my armor's just going. And in a second I drop into structure. What I quite like about these sites though is because you're anchored, because you're warp scram the whole time. Basically, if you make it to this wave, it's all or nothing. You can't go. So now, you know, on a regular site, I'd be warping out. I'm well into structure. And too much. I got to go. Here, you got no choice. You made it this far. You got to beat them before they beat you. That's it. That's your choices. So take him out. That's most of the DPS gone. Move on to the other cruiser, and the two other ships will warp out now because the last cruiser's gone. So once that's achieved, you're probably fine. The damage from the Rodiva isn't too bad, and you can then volley it off. But you can see how close the fit gets to being popped. This also isn't the worst. The site around before this, I ended up with maybe about 25% structure left, which was pretty nerve-wracking. But it's a fairly cheap ship, fairly cheaply fitted, and for relatively low skilled. You know, we've just got T1 launchers, T1 ammo, and that's the site finished. So we'll just warp in, we'll pull the drones in, and we'll just fly over to the MTU, see what loot we've got. Turn all my things off, keep wrapping up though because I want to recover that before we fly to a station and repair. You'll see in the loot, Triglavian databases, a booster which is quite a strong one, lasts about 28 hours I believe, and then just a bunch of parts. So +4 to everything for 28-ish hours. Not a bad one. Anyway, thanks for watching guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe.